and I can tell like this car is like thrashed. Like the check engine light appeared, and it started smelling like burnt engine oil and coolant. I'm like, this is... I used to go to Sydney every month, and whenever I'm up in Sydney, I'm always there for a week, and I wouldn't have a car. Whenever I'm in Sydney, I always browse Marketplace. I mean, I do that even when I'm in Melbourne, so it's just something that I do every day to basically to find deals that that is worth, you know, that experience. So my criteria of a car, it has to be somewhere along those lines of like life is too short to drive boring cars, and that's always the motto that I always live by. So like cheap, fun, nuggety kind of like cars, and a Volkswagen Golf GTI MK6 popped up. You know, like those deals where the seller didn't really present the car properly. It's taken randomly with their phone with really like weird angles, and I really can't put my finger on it, but you know those marketplace deals where you know you can get a deal. This is one of those cars that I know I can get a deal on. I just can't really put my finger on it, but you know it intuitively. So I messaged the guy, and I was like, hey, like, can I come down now to have a look? And you know, like, he responded immediately. It's great, you know, like I can just head down. So I booked a Uber immediately. When I rock up, when I look at the car, I'm like, oh, this actually looks pretty decent. So the first question I always ask whenever I buy a car is, you know, like, why are they selling it? What is the motivation of selling it? Are they upgrading their cars? Do they want money fast? Or are they desperate? Or do they just, you know, like, you can know these things. So the first thing that he told me is like, oh man, like, I really need the cash. I need the cash by like today. And I'm like, jackpot, you know, like, I can hustle this guy down. I definitely can get a good deal. So I started walking around the car. Like, it's 2010, it's more than 10 years old at this point, so I'm not expecting it to be, you know, like showroom condition, especially how he listed the car. So I went around, checked like the service history. He has a really good service history. One common thing to go wrong on these cars are the timing chain. The timing chain has been done pretty recently. The service is all up to date, but however, like, the wheels are all, you know, like, scuffed up. The paint is not in the best condition, and I know like these things, like, it can be fixed. It's not a big issue, but I'm starting to point this out as if like it's the end of the world, you know. So and this guy, like, you can tell, like, you can hustle him, like, I can tell like he's in a desperate position. So I think he listed the car for like 12, 13. I was trying to find the listing back, but I just couldn't find it. Right, I should take a screenshot of every car that I bought off Marketplace, because the listing, it tells you a lot of things. And I told him, like, you know what, I will take it off your hands today for $8,000. And eventually, we started at like $9,000. If you do a transfer in Australia, it's not instant like a lot of other countries, but so with Pay ID, they promised it to be instant, but if it's a big transaction, like, it wouldn't be instant. I'm like, why not, like, let's try $3,000 first. So I sent him $3,000, and you know what, it's pending. It has to go through some like checks, so it's gonna take up a day, and I didn't want to leave without getting the car, so I just go to the bank together with him, withdraw the money, pay him like the rest, and because I reassured him like the money is coming, he's okay with me driving the car away. Now, because this car, I bought it in February and the rego expires in August. Afterwards, he actually texted me like, hey, like, can you actually pay me extra $70 for the rego? I'm like, okay, that's a bit random, but sure, you know, $70 from like a huge discount is not a big issue. So I can tell he's really insecure about the money, because he keep texting me like, hey, like, how do you enjoying the car? Do you like the car? And he keep checking in to see whether or not if I like the car. And I definitely think it's because like the money hasn't come in yet, and he wants to make sure like I don't run away and cancel the transfer, or that insecure feeling. I totally understand. I totally empathize with him. Like, it's just insecure not seeing that money in your account. And so when I started driving this car, I really enjoy it. I didn't used to like Golf and GTIs. I just didn't really like them. Well, I don't want to judge. I want to drive it firsthand to experience it, right? Just drive it, and I'll have my firsthand opinion. And you know, like, right out of the bat, man, like, this car is awesome, right? It's straight piped, and I can tell like this car is like thrashed, like properly driven, right? No one would straight pipe a car and not drive it hard, you know. So after I drive it, issues starting to pop up, right? The check engine light appeared. Surprised, it's a Volkswagen, so you know I sort of expected that to come up. It really bothered me, and it started smelling like burnt engine oil and coolant. I'm like, this is not good. So I, upon like thorough inspection, it's just a valve cover gasket leak. Thank God. And the coolant overflow tank, it's leaking. So that's where the coolant smell is coming from. So I went down to Repco to buy some tools. I get a brand new overflow tank. I'm not a very handy person, but small stuff like this I can handle it. But in terms of like big mechanical repairs, I'm just not really good at it. So the first things first, I get it out of the way, and now it's driving fine. And I got the check engine light to make sure, like, to prepare for my road trip back to Melbourne. Everything's fine. It's just the catalytic converter that is short. That's why it's throwing the check engine light. And turns out this guy he cleared the code before I came. You know, and I think that's a common thing for people to do when they try to hide like the check engine light. That's a bit unfortunate, but it's not a big issue. Like, I can make the road trip. Afterwards, I went down to service in New South Wales, transferred the car to my name, and drive it around for a few days, having a great fun with it, and started to make my trip from Sydney to Melbourne. Overall, the trip was great. No issues at all. It made the trip perfectly. And the first things first, I just bring it to my mechanic to have a check over. Did a service, and turns out the wheel bearings at the front was shot. All in all, like, I think the final service bill was like $750, the oil change and replacing the wheel bearings, which is cool. And drove it around now, and I named this car Oreo, because at the time I already have a Audi RS5 and a CLS 63 AMG. So this car is sort of like in the middle, and it's white. So I decided to call this car Oreo. And man, like, this is one of my favorite cars ever. So because I don't have any space for this car, my apartment has 3 parkings, and this is my 4th car, and I just didn't have space for it, right? And now, if I were to keep this car, it has to be parked on the street, and I have to move it every 2 hours. So it's just not, there's not space. I hate to let go of this car, but it's just because of logistical reasons, I just have to. So I started preparing the car for sale. I cleaned it up, I took really, really good pictures, and I know the presentation is the key. You want your car to look as clean as possible, to put it up for sale in the market, to fetch like the highest price possible. And so I took my professional camera down to Docklands under the bridge and took some really, really good pictures, and I started listing on Marketplace for $13,997. Right, I thought, $13,997, it looks better than $14,000, and inquiries just flooding in, right? Like, this car is hot. So eventually, one guy came down. He really liked the car, and he offered me like $12,000. And at this point, after fuel, after like all like the mechanical stuff, I worked on it. All in, I spent about $11,000. I end up profiting $1,000 for this car, for a Thrashed MK6 Golf GTI. There's no complaint with that. I had a lot of fun with it. I definitely regret a lot selling this. It's just so fun. It's if you're used to driving big cars, going into this, oh my god, it's insane. The sound and stuff. Oof. I will definitely get one in the near future. So yeah, that's basically how I made $1,000 on a thrashed up Volkswagen Golf GTI. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll really appreciate if you can show us your support by liking this video, subscribing, hitting the bell, or maybe share it with your friends, because it will really help out to grow this channel, right? Now, with that being said, right, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.